I wear a few different hats. So I am an administrator over at our Edwards campus, a faculty member in our School of Public Affairs and Administration, and just recently became an elected official. So I'm not really sure exactly what capacity I'm speaking in here today, but I like to show up as my whole self no matter what, though I also like to keep very different and distinct accounts on Twitter and email. So if you have questions pertaining to different things, feel free to find me in any of those spaces. But I'd like to get started. Kate, if we could go to the next slide. Um, I'd like to get started really by thinking about the role of the public university, because that was kind of what we were charged with talking about today. And so KU's mission, the mission of the University of Kansas, is to lift students and society by educating leaders, building healthy communities, and making discoveries that change the world. And I think that's a really broad, bold public mission. When we look at that mission, we don't see the word credential anywhere in it when we think about the degrees that we all came here to pursue, but we do see some really big ideas around knowledge and around community. And so I've always thought about what it means to think about community work. Kate, if we could go to the next one. I am a public school kid. I went to public school all the way. I came to KU for undergrad. That's me slightly before my undergraduate years, but just by a little bit. Thinking about why KU for me, it's because the University of Kansas was 20 minutes away from my house growing up. And it was the public school where I could get in-state tuition. That doesn't mean I don't think it's the most amazing institution in the world, but I think that when we consider the role of a flagship state university, I think we really need to consider the place-based nature of community and what that means and what it means to be doing work in a place that is home for so many of us. So if we could go to the next slide. I changed my major 4 times as an undergrad and twice as a graduate student because I had a really hard time figuring out exactly where my work fit and exactly what I wanted to do. I ended up in public administration. And so when we think about public administration, that's all of the non-elected government work. And that, I think, can be narrowly thought about as the bureaucracy that keeps things moving in our communities, but it also can be broadly thought about as all of the things that touch the public good. And so what got me really excited about public administration and the reason why I stayed in public administration as a scholar is because ultimately everything is a public administration question. So when we think about budgeting, when we think about economics, our budget is a values document, but our budget also includes all those big economic questions. That's a public administration question. When we think about the role of the internet, when we think about IT, when we think about our computer scientists, those are things we need for public administration. We see a lot of that thinking about vaccine signups and how we get all of our information online these days. When we think about even things like the vaccine and COVID, public health and science, these are all public administration questions. When we think about the communications plan. So all of these different disciplines really affect what we do in the public good. And if you could go to the next slide, please, Kate. But I think one of the hardest pieces as a university, thinking about how do we engage with these big questions, how do we bring the knowledge that we're building to community, it really comes down to how do we translate the expertise that we have when we think about our flagship Research One institution in ways that we can work with audiences across disciplines, because we're bringing a variety of expertises to all of these big public questions and all of these big community issues. And I think the most important thing that we need to think about as we continue to pursue knowledge is that we're all experts in different ways, but we need to have a shared and common understanding and a shared and common knowledge. So we need to become experts in our various areas, but then work without jargon when we're doing this work.